I'm Chad, and in this video I'm going to be working with resin. I don't work with resin very often, but I had a piece of sycamore that had a nice void in it, and it seemed perfect for a resin project. So I'm going to show you the process from start to finish, and it's a pretty lengthy one, but it's pretty interesting if you've never worked with resin before. I don't have much experience with it, so it's kind of a learning experience for me as well. So I hope you'll join me, and let's get started. I've got this piece of sycamore. It's been laying around the shop for about 10 months. It was just kind of squared off, but as you can see, I've rounded it out. And what I wanted to do was make sure that no new cracks form, so I could be pretty confident that the wood is dry and is going to be stable once the resin's in there. I haven't noticed any new cracks. I turned it around maybe 3 weeks ago, and it seems to be fine. I've already checked, it does fit inside the pressure pot, and so the next step is going to be kind of creating the mold, which I'm just going to do with tape. And basically, I'm just going to wrap the entire piece with masking tape. Be sure I press down along the edges real well. Then I'm just going to cut a slit and open it up and give myself space to pour the resin in. And then it'll sit in the pressure pot like this, so the resin won't pour out. I've got the blank all taped up, and as you can see, I've kind of made a little jacket for it. And I opened it up enough so I can see well into the crevices that are down there, and there's also a pocket over here that I need to be sure to fill also. I have no idea how much resin it's going to take, so I'm hoping that I mix enough. But first, I'm going to put this on a cradle, so when the resin levels out, it doesn't run out of either end. And I'm also going to tape it to the thing so it can't shift around too much inside the pressure pot. I've got the piece taped into its little cradle. I'm just going to set that aside for the moment. The next step is going to be to mix the color. And I'm going to mix this straight from concentrates. I like to mix my own colors. I pretty much only use yellow, blue, red, and black. And just mix them to eye, kind of just play around till I happen upon the color I'm looking for. So I'm looking for kind of a emerald green, maybe a little lighter than that. I've got blue and yellow here, and you want to use concentrated dyes. So these haven't been diluted at all, and you want minimal dilution so you can get a good rich color in the resin. So let me give this a try. See how this goes. I should probably be wearing gloves. I've mixed up my first little test batch here, and I think it might be a bit on the blue side. Dilute that a little. You can see it's a pretty dark green. It's about what I'm looking for, but I'm going to add a bit more yellow and see how that goes. You can see it's a little bit brighter now, and this is a little more what I'm going for. So I think I've got my dye to the color I want, so I'm going to set that aside for the moment. And so if you've ever worked with resin before, you know you have to work pretty quickly. The stuff I'm using has about a 7 or 8 minute working time. And with this stuff you can cool it down and extend that working time by a minute or two. But I'm just going to chance it. The resin I'm using has 2 parts, part A and part B, and you measure those by weight. So I've got a kitchen scale here. I usually use it on grams. It's just the easiest for me at least. When you mix the dye in this case you mix it in with part A. So I'll do that. Once you mix the two together, you got to work fast. So I'm going to pour it into the mold. I'm going to kind of move it around, try to get any air bubbles to come up to the surface, and try to get that resin down in every little crevice down in there, and leave it just shy of the top hopefully, so I can have some good options while I'm turning as to what parts I want showing, and I don't have some gaps in the resin that limit what I can make out of this piece. So I'm going to start mixing, and hopefully this will go smoothly. I've got my part A and part B. The A has the dye mixed into it. So before I mix those together, I want to check the pressure pot, make sure the seal and everything is in the right place. I want to make sure that this piece will fit in there in a good position, which it does. So a couple things on this is actually a paint sprayer tank that has been modified, and it's the same one pretty much everybody else uses too. So the only thing on it that's been kind of tricky is the safety valve tends to go off pretty easily. So I've just got a rubber band around it to give it just a little bit more pressure. So hopefully, because you want to bring this up to at least 35 psi in order to get a good clear resin cast. So it tends to kick off right around that point, so a little bit of extra pressure on there helps. As you can see, I had a little bit of trouble getting the safety valve on the pressure pot to hold, but it's there. It's holding pressure at about 50 psi, and so I'm pretty confident that that should be good now. So I've got things cleaned up. Pressure pot is set. I'm going to let that sit for a few hours just to be sure the resin is nice and hard. It's been about 24 hours since we put the piece in, so I'm going to release the pressure now. You can see that it held pressure overnight. So I'm going to release the pressure, we'll take it out and see how it looks. Get it a little cradle. See if I can just tear this off. Yep, looks like it's going to come off. So I mostly want to get the tape off where there's a seam between the resin and the wood, just to make sure it's not separating anywhere. Okay, I don't think I'm going to fight with the rest of that. I'm just going to turn it away. That resin it's solid. It's you can see where there were some bubbles up here. It looks pretty clear and clean. It's dark, so I can't see for sure. So once this is hollowed out and some light's passing through there, it'll probably look a little bit different, and hopefully a little more of that emerald green color. So next step is going to be to get it on the lathe and start roughing out our vase. I'm going to start out with the piece between centers because I might need to reposition it a little bit in order to get the resin in the right place on the final piece. So I'm going to just get it in there snugly, kind of turn and see where my high and low spots are. And that looks, I'm using my tool rest here to kind of measure the gap between the wood and the tool rest, so I can see that this edge is going to be cut off. Then there's going to be I'll cut through a fair amount of wood before I actually hit the resin. So going around, that looks about where I think I want to be. So I'll start there, see how it goes, and if I need to readjust it, I'll do that. I've got the piece in the chuck now with the tenon that I turned earlier, so now we can begin to work on the inside. Want to start hollowing out some of the inside so I can get an idea of where the resin is and how it flows deeper down into the vessel, so I can, before I decide on a final shape on the outside. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to leave it at least an inch thick or so, and so I have plenty to work with should I change my mind on the design. And I'm going to try to avoid using the dust collector. Sorry if I have to turn it on. I've got the piece hollowed down to about the bottom of the resin there. And now I'm going to try something a little different. Because I want to use this bottom portion as part of the foot, I'm going to take it out of the chuck, flip it around, and use this old tenon from a previous project. I tend to leave these around for exactly this type of thing. And a little bit of non-slip padding, and reverse the piece and use the tailstock so I can work on the foot and include that. It'll also help to make the piece a little more bottom heavy, so it won't be quite as tippy. That's spinning surprisingly true, so it looks like this might work pretty well. Obviously the main feature of this piece is the resin, so I'm keeping the design pretty simple. Now it's time for everybody's favorite part, sanding. So I'm going to try 180 and see if I can get away with that, and then move to 220, 320, 400, and I'll probably have to go pretty high to get a polish on that resin. I'm going to try to do the inside as well, since it is visible from the top. I'm going to take this off the chuck now and turn it around like I did before, and then go ahead and finish up the bottom of it. It's sanded to about probably 1500 grit right now. The inside is sanded to 600, and the acrylic's looking pretty good. It'll probably need to be buffed some, and we'll take care of that as soon as I take off my foot. Now I'm going to wipe the piece down with mineral spirits. I don't want to raise the grain, but I want to clean it off. You can really see it start to come out. I think I made the green a little darker than I had intended, but that's okay. I'm going to use a little bit of white diamond abrasive to see if I can buff the acrylic up just a little bit. And I don't know if this is going to make it better or worse. So the only thing left to do to the piece is to oil it and sign it, or sign it then oil it. And I just sign with a it's kind of a felt tip pen, and then I brand my logo into it just using this bent piece of metal and a blowtorch. So overall, I think the piece came out okay. The green is maybe a little darker than I had intended, or a lot darker than I had intended, but it still looks good. If you decide to try this at home, let me know how it goes in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss any new videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.